10. Are you sure? Yeah, I counted them many times. Mom, I'm sure. I take a sharp breath, moving my thumb across the edge of the phone. My hand is slippery from the sweat, and my eyes twitch and dart from a corner of the room to another, like an addict. Okay, does that mean something good? My 12-year-old daughter, Rhea, asks from the other line. I don't know what to tell her. I feel something dripping on the back of my neck, probably sweat from my hair. Or blood. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. Bye, honey. That morning, when I left home, I knew what I had to do. I just hoped they'd start showing up after my return, not before. When Rhea and Jocelyn were home alone, I'd called Rhea and asked her to tell me how many ... Clients had shown up at outdoor, waiting patiently. That's what I keep telling her. Mommy sells newspapers, and she keeps them in the basement, where she prints them. That's why people keep showing up at our house. When she said 10 people had already gotten there, my heart skipped a beat. That's too many. Way too many. I understand they're eager, but stalking us. With a sigh, I wipe my phone of the blood and put it in my pocket. My black boots are drowning in his sticky, slippery blood. I wish his blood was red. Over the last years, it just keeps getting darker. His open eyes stare right into my soul. He's my Mona Lisa, watching me no matter where I go around the room. My bloody work of art, till death do us part. And now we've parted, at least for another year, until I have to kill him again, because this fucking guy just keeps coming back. After I'm done with the cleanup, I get behind the wheel and head south. That's what we agreed on long ago, when I still loved him. I like to say he lost his love for me throughout the years, but I know his heart never felt it. The road is long and hard to get through. I can feel his eyes from the back seat and my knuckles are white from gripping the wheel too hard. Trees surround us. I'd have nowhere to go, and no one would hear me scream if I left the car. It keeps getting harder to carry out this fucking burden. I just hope I can put it to an end. I keep getting flashbacks of what used to be. I'll fill you in. I don't even know why I chose this forum. I guess I hoped our followers would see it. I don't even care if they kill us anymore. This rouse has been going for over 15 years. It was 2009 and we were sophomores in college. The parties back then were more authentic. No one bothered to hide, or lie, or make themselves something they were not. Me, Juliet, Adam, Ophelia and Anthony used to hang out all the time. This one party was back at this sorority house that I can't really remember the name of. We were all drunk off our faces and, in the dark of the night, when the music and the heat of other people had worn out, we recited to ghost stories and the so-called deep talk. Anthony had his arm around me and was staring into the distance, while telling these freshmen about a notorious campus legend he was actually making up on the spot. At one point, someone asked us how we came to know each other. Instead of the real answer, Juliet and Ophelia were sisters, and Adam and Anthony were mine and Julie's boyfriends. Anthony leaned in, eyes wide and sparkling, and lowered his voice. We're in a cult. The freshman, also drunk off his face, laughed and wiped his face. Yeah, okay. You didn't tell them, did you? I asked Anthony, pulling myself away from his embrace. It's no harm. Relax. It's not like I'm recruiting them or something. Even though Julie and Off hadn't been close enough to hear, they caught on the joke. Look, Julie began. If you want to laugh, it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. Anyway, not like we've killed somebody. Yet. But we're planning to, Off said. Anthony shushed her. It's late. Let's all go home. He gave us a fake warning look, but Ophelia's face was gleaming as she continued. It's really a matter of time. You don't know what someone can do with enough ambition. At that point, some kid who we'd assumed had passed out on the couch lifted his head. What the fuck are you guys talking about? I let out a sigh. I thought you were sleeping. You shouldn't have brought it up, Tony. Brought what up? Some other girl asked, passing by. We're in a cult, Anthony said again. I don't get why you're all so secretive about it. It's the most fun I've had in my life. Some didn't believe us and told us to fuck off, but the few that did leaned in. This girl, Laura, had heard us say we wanted to kill someone and, even if I suspect she didn't really believe in our cult, started asking us questions, thinking we were some deranged people who were actually planning a murder. So, what is this cult about? What do you worship? Oh, it's kind of a long story. Wouldn't even know how to explain it. I sighed. Is it a deity? A god? Adam's face dropped. We don't believe in gods, he spat out. Then, is one of you the leader? No, I replied at the same time as Julie, who had said yes. I mean, it's not that easy. None of us met him yet. We are only a few of the members who get to talk to him. The others are initiates. The laughter around us started to dissolve as more and more people gathered around, believers or non-believers, who just needed something entertaining to listen to. At some point, one guy, Ronan, in an attempt to poke fun at us, asked us if we were actually just organizing orgies. Anthony turned to him, his mind damp from alcohol, and slapped him across the face. The room fell silent. You think we're joking? People die trying to get in, and you think we're some weird sex freak club who worship some ... Old guy, you have no idea, and even if you had, you wouldn't accept it. Some of you are that close-minded? You wouldn't know what it takes to be part of this. You're all in your 20s and walk around thinking you have some purpose on this earth, only to end up working 9 to 5 south and shooting yourselves in the head at 40. We don't strive for heaven and we don't fear hell. Our destiny is much more than a simple coin toss and trying to make it off the naughty list. There is no crime on this earth that isn't excusable, but even the smallest of deeds can be punished. We are loyal to ourselves and to him and him only. No other gods, no statues. His passion had startled us, but it was amusing. Anthony then added, if you want to know what it's like to actually be part of something greater, to guard your soul and lead it where it needs to be, then I'm here for any questions. What about killing people? Someone asked in the back. Anthony smiled. Every cult has objectives. We moved towards evolution, whatever the cost. The next week had passed normally, and we laughed off our cult. It became an inside joke between us, but no one really asked us about it. I think most people had forgotten our late night talk. That was until March 11th, when a student, Sonia, threw herself off the 7th floor of the science building. She had committed suicide, and there wasn't enough proof to pin it on anyone else. However, as I was walking to my dorm one night after dark, someone stopped me. I recognized the kid from the party. Did you do it? What? Did you kill her? Your ... cult? My eyes widened, and his grip on my hand tightened. I'm not a cop. It's okay. I want in. What? I want in your cult. I'll pay you. That was a joke, Christian. We aren't actually in a cult. We were drunk as shit and wanted to make fun of you. He let go of my hand. You don't need to hide from me. Don't try to play it off. I tried to walk away, but he grabbed me again. Look, we're really similar. I have had ... urges throughout all my life. It stared with animals. I just wish I could do something greater with them. I want in. I want to help you towards your great plan. I don't know what it is that you worship, but I'm eager to find out. I freaked out and, seeing I could not escape his desperate pleas, I told him to just talk to Anthony. When I met my boyfriend, a few days later, he had a radiating smile and took me to a way fancier diner than what we frequented ... What's up with you? You suddenly got money. Or what? Were you a millionaire in secret? He shook his head. Remember the Christian kid? I frowned. That counted as an answer to him, who continued. He bought the whole cult thing. His dad died a while ago, and he's got a fucking fortune on his hands. I told him I'd make him an ... initiate if he made a donation to help our research. What the fuck? What research? You don't even know what. Look. He agreed to make donations from time to time, and I just blabbered about out cause and whatever. It's not like he'll go to the police. He can. Some girl died and we indirectly tied ourselves to it, and now we're taking advantage of him and stealing his money. Are you insane? The kid's a fucking psychopath already. He killed his dad. Emma, he says anything, I'll report him. You have no proof. He admitted it to me. I turned my head away, and he grabbed my hand. Thousands of dollars, he said, kissing me on the cheek. Do the others know? I'll tell them. Oh, and I gave our deity a name. Everything needs a name, if we're gonna worship it. What is it? Kanu. It came to me in a dream, he said, and I couldn't tell if he was joking or not. Over the next 3 years, our cult gathered more followers. The cult of Kanu, whose followers had no name and no race, no age, no gender. We were individuals striving to not be judged, and lived free, by our own rules. Me, Ophelia, Juliet, Adam, and Anthony were the 5 fingers of Kanu's hand, and each of us had our undisclosed duties towards the deity that involved donations from the other members. It was all thanks to Anthony, whose preacher qualities were undeniable. The audience helped, too. The cult mostly seek isolated individuals with urges just like Christians, who wanted to believe their anomalies in thinking could help towards a greater cause. We'd tell them to hold back their killer instincts and wait for our call, which never came, and keep donating to our research. Authorities never caught on it. How could some serial killer wannabe report us to the police? What could they say? Yeah, these guys took all my money and I haven't killed anyone yet. Seriously, everything went really well in those 3 years. We'd made a lot of money off lying to people, and we even put some effort into this cult. Me and Ophelia drew pictures, visions of Kanu, and claimed to read articles to people of his doings in the past. We'd search up murders and disappearances and tie them to him. Christian, our very first follower, had started doing drugs and claiming to see him. He was a devoted member and made donation after donation, treating us like gods and saying he was awaiting our call. He'd send us sketches of his visions, which were mostly blooded corpses and screaming faces. He kept drawing faces over and over again, and one stood out in particular, Ophelia's, who was terribly annoyed. I knew he was in love with me, but I really don't like his drawings. Tears are streaming down my face as I hit the gas. In the back seat, his eyes are shiny, as if he'd been crying. He tries to hum to calm me down, but his throat is slit and the air gushed out of the cut, making him sound like a pig. Ophelia and I were roommates. I came home one night and found the door open, not unlocked, opened. Her body was laying in her bed, whose sheets had turned red, and her head was missing. That's all I remember. I don't know much else. Everything was a blur after that. We couldn't find the head, and I threw out all of my red clothes, because I couldn't stand the color anymore. Christian said Kanu came to him in a vision and asked him to kill her. The police had caught him drugged off his ass 5 days later and arrested him to 25 to life. No one cared that he'd spit out our names. They all thought he was a junkie. When I visited him in prison a few weeks later, I did it just to ask him where he'd put the head. He said he left her intact. I stabbed her. I didn't cut her throat. That was our last conversation with him. Before he killed himself in prison. Grief does weird things to you. Anthony and I got married that year, and so did Julie and Adam. We thought that might help us stay united. It didn't. The problem is, when you try to stop a cult, your followers might refuse. Telling them it had been a ruse for so long was out of the question. Instead, we crowned Christian as a hero and told them we'd go on a hiatus, as Kanu had received his sacrifice. The hiatus didn't last long, because the majority of our audience had a certain thirst for blood and began stalking us and our families. Pregnant with Rhea, I told Anthony he needed to do something. The cult began its activity again, this time with some strict rules. No one, apart from the 4 of us, could have visions. No one was to act on their instincts unless Kanu asked them, and Kanu only talked to the 4 of us. The symbol of the cult was a hand with its pinky finger missing. symbolizing Ophelia's death. I began seeing these necklaces everywhere with the hand on them, and by now we'd gathered about 1,000 followers. With their monthly donations, we could give up working and retire. Even though everything had left a sour taste on me, I accepted this wicked way of living, knowing there was no way to back out now. There was no corner on this earth where we could go and hide, because these psychopaths could find us. I didn't know at the time, but we would find Ophelia's head way later. 9 years later, in fact, intact, and, in that same day, Anthony would die for the first time because, turns out, when you mess with blood magic, even if you make up a name like Kanu, the real deity finds you, no matter my husband's particular foot fetish was licking toes. Yup, really getting in there with his tongue and slobbering all over each of my toes, one by one. Now, it took me years of exploring my husband's kink to build up enough tolerance not to burst out laughing from the tickling sensation within 30 seconds, and 4 years of dating, and nearly 10 years of marriage, I eventually became something of a pro at getting my feet licked and maintaining my composure. In fact, I got so good at it that whenever my husband would lick my toes, I could completely tune it out, often multitasking things like filing my nails, reading a book, and streaming a show, as he licked away. Heck, sometimes I'd even fall asleep while he did it, which is why, on that fateful night in 2019, when I was lying in bed in the dark, my feet dangling off the mattress, and I began to feel a tongue slither its way up and down each and every one of my toes, I could not have been less bothered. Truth is, I probably wouldn't have even noticed that something was off, were it not for the fact that it felt as if my husband was trying a new technique, something that he had never implemented before in the 14 years that we had been together. The bite. Yes, after feeling him suck each and every one of my toes, I then proceeded to feel more intense pressure, as I felt his teeth begin to clamp down on my feet. Feeling adventurous, I called out in the dark, before shaming him, as he sometimes asked me to do. "You're a naughty boy, and you're gonna pay for that." I reached over to my bedside table, opened its drawer, and removed a pair of handcuffs that he sometimes liked me to use on him after he was finished with my feet. "Don't make me restrain you," I called out again, but rather than play along and flirt back from the foot of the bed as he always did, he suddenly stopped biting my feet. "Honey," I asked, "why'd you stop?" But he didn't reply. For a moment, there was only silence. Until suddenly, I heard my husband's cell phone ringtone go off in the bathroom. Ring. "You gonna get that?" I asked, but he continued to remain quiet, ignoring my question. "Fine, I'll get it," I said, as I hopped up from the bed and tiptoed through the dark, over to the bathroom, its door having been closed since I retired to the bedroom earlier that night. As I approached it, I couldn't help but notice that light was emanating from underneath the crack between the rug and the door. "Honey, you left the light on in the bathroom again," I called back to the bed, as I began to open the bathroom door. "I'm gonna have to punish you even more." But before I could finish my sentence, my jaw dropped and I began to shake. As I saw my husband's lifeless body just lying there in the shower, its limbs mangled, its skin pale, as whatever blood remained in it poured down the drain. I simply froze, as my mind began to race. If that's my husband, and he is dead, then who the fuck was just licking feet? I thought to turn around and stare back into the dark bedroom, but I was too terrified to see who might be standing behind me. So I opted to instead walk over to my husband's body and remove his cell phone from his pocket, which was still ringing, over and over and over again. Ring, ring. I looked down at the phone as I held it in my hand and saw an incoming call from an unknown number. I answered it. Hello. For a moment, there was silence. Until a quiet, raspy voice simply whispered back over the line. I'm under the bed. Want to play some more? Suddenly, chills ran down my spine and my body went into fight or flight, as my heart began racing and I began to hyperventilate. Not knowing what else to do, I gathered myself and in a single motion, turned around, darted into the bedroom and ran for the hallway, as I tried to slam the door behind me. But just before I was able to close it, I saw what looked like the silhouette of a man crawl out and block it from shutting, as he writhed on the ground like an insect, and as I pushed and pushed, trying to keep whoever or whatever was in my bedroom from getting out, I saw his body wriggle a few inches more into the hallway and suddenly felt his tongue lick a single one of my toes. Arg! I screamed at the top of my lungs, before stumbling back, turning around and running down the stairs, as I saw whoever or whatever it was chase after me on his hands and knees. Slam. I stood there, outside my house, leaning against the door, as my body shook and tears ran down my eyes, before eventually willing myself to run to my car. As I backed out of my driveway and peeled off down the street, I looked back at the door, only to find that he never opened it, for some reason choosing not to chase after me. 30 minutes later, I was at the police station, reporting what had happened, and an hour after that, the cops were combing my house. But the strange figure who had killed my husband and licked my feet was gone. 5 years later, I still can't fall asleep at night unless I'm under the covers, for fear of feeling a tongue lick my toes. And while I haven't stopped mourning my husband, if I ever date again, I think it's fair to say I could never date someone with a foot fetish again. I've tried to move past what happened, tried to move past the shocking events of that fateful night. But whenever I tell someone my story and they bring up the urban legend of the licked hand, I tell them it's no legend at all. And it licks feet too? Okay, so I, M48, recently went to help out my mother with clearing out her house. It took weeks. She was a hoarder, and just so you understand what I mean, she had around 6 different drawers full of unused soap bars, and when I asked why she had too many, her only answer was just in case I needed them. I'm her only remaining family, as I was an only child. My father, her husband, passed away from cancer at a young age, and all her siblings or relatives are either dead or not in our country. So I officially made the choice a few months ago to put her in a nursing home. Anyways, the final room I had to clear out was the attic, and when I tell you there was piles upon piles of boxes just filled with books. It took me around 5 hours to sort through it all, and 95% of those books just went into a bag for donations. So, when I got to the final box, it felt like a miracle from God, to say the least. I was honestly prepared to just toss the whole box into the donations bag, but I'm glad I didn't. I just regret it a ton most days. I found this old tattered notebook. I felt like if I touched it, it was just going to disintegrate. I cleared off all the dust, assuming to find one of those picture memory books or something, but instead I found a journal. The handwriting was messy and absolutely didn't belong to either my mother or my father. I just assumed my mom picked it up at one of those church sales she loved going to. But after reading a couple pages, I wasn't so sure. This book has haunted my nightmares. Anytime I close my eyes, I just visualize the things I've read within that damn notebook. And despite my utter fear of it, it'd be dumb to make this post and not recite some of the pages. So here it goes. The 26th of June 1978. I don't understand why it's so morally wrong to kill someone. People just don't understand the thrill of it. It's the same as taking a drug. The first dose is the best thing imaginable. Then the second or the third or any time after that can't live up to that first hit. So many people like to say, don't knock it till you try it. So why are people immediately one to shame murderers? I have a theory that if everyone just tries it once, they'll understand the righteousness of it. Having someone under your hands, watching as their face contorts to shock, to fear, to anger, to desperation, and finally to despair. Seeing the life drain from their eyes, letting you be the last face they see as you crush their windpipes, the small gurgle that reaches up from the back of their throat as they attempt for their final breath is almost orgasmic. Single quotes. The 7th of March 1978. I still remember my first kill like it was yesterday. It was an accident, sure, but it was still just as incredible as if I'd intended to do it. I was 10 and my mom had just called me in to watch over the baby as she went to go pee. I knew I didn't have a choice. Being asked to do something is never a choice. You're already expected to do it. So I agreed. I sat on the stool she was on originally and watched as the babbling ball of flesh splashed in the water. That thing hated me. Anytime it looked at me, it would cry, as if it knew what I was. This time was no different. The second it noticed its sweet mommy was gone, it screamed at the top of its lungs, wailing like a banshee. I swear it's like it wanted to destroy my eardrums. I decided in order to make it stop, I grabbed its little moldable head and shoved it under the water. I'd always been told staying underwater for too long was a bad thing, but I was never taught why. Its screams turned into bubbles and all was quiet till the bubbles stopped. Then a new scream replaced it, one of my mother. I removed my hand as she screamed at me, asking what I'd done. I watched as she took the rag doll of flesh out of the bathtub and try and get some life back into it. I knew I'd fucked up. I immediately brought out the crocodile tears, explaining between sobs that it was an accident, that he actually put his head under and I was bringing it back up. But God, that feeling I had as I watched its body go limp was one I was never going to forget. That is just 2 of the passages from that notebook. I'll spare you all the rest as they were some of the more tamer entries. I have no clue what I'm going to do with this notebook. If I just throw it away, donate it, and let some poor other human read the horrors behind those pages. If I keep it and try to forget about it, handing it into the police would be useless due to how long ago it was. My main thought right now is to burn it, but I don't know. Right now the book just sits on my nightstand like some kind of taunt. No matter where I put it in my house, it just feels like it's just laughing at me because I'm now the unlucky owner of those gruesome pages.